Mr. President, the President of the People's Republic of China.
Good to meet you. Great pleasure to see you again.
He's so not happy.
See you again. Washington good behind me? Me too. And we're going to have a very successful meeting, I have no doubt.
我肯定我们今天会有非常成功的会。
But he's a very tough negotiator. That's not good.
He is not happy. He does not want to be there. He does not want to be shaking Donald Trump's hand. And yet he's there nonetheless with Donald Trump, acting as if this is my great buddy. This is my friend. I know this man very well. And I often wonder, why does Trump do that? I don't get it. He has missiles aimed at China. He's been trying to rally all of these other countries to attack China, or at the very least be hostile towards China. He has military in Taiwan, which is China, as we speak. And he's having this conversation like, here's my buddy, my pal, my good friend. I know this man so well. And as I pointed out, Trump got nothing. Give me your analysis of what, let's say, unfolded in that meeting, at the very least, what we know ultimately took place.
Well, first of all, Trump is a reality TV show host, so I mean that's all he knows. And now, I was wrong. Last time I was on this show, I said, Jamar, we can always count on Taco Tuesday. I was wrong about that because I forgot about Taco Thursday.
Right.
But you know what? And it's okay because I love tacos. Taco Thursday is just as good as Taco Tuesday. And based on the meeting, with the detail that was leaked out, Trump is gonna remove the 10% so-called fentanyl tax on China, and they're gonna roll back all the semiconductor restrictions that was placed on September 29th, which is called the 50% rule, which is any Chinese company, semiconductor company that's more than 50% owned by a Chinese owner will be placed on a U.S. Entity list, get blacklisted. That was what triggered the Dutch government from seizing control of the semiconductor company Nesperia from its Chinese owner. And in response, China put down more rare earth export control on October 9th. So for China's part, China agreed to roll back all the new rare earth export control that was put in place on October 9th in return for rolling back of the 50% rule and for Trump's getting rid of the fentanyl tax. So what we're looking at right now, tariff on China is now lower than on some of the so-called U.S. allies. You know, like now I think the tariff on Chinese goods is around something like 20%, right? This is actually screwing all the people who made strategies to move production out of China after April 2nd, the so-called Liberation Day, in order to do so-called friendshoring, to move their supply chain elsewhere. And now they're getting caught in the whiplash. And suddenly, all the effort, all the money they invested to move their production out of China is all gone down the drain, because they would have the tariff would have been lower had they just stayed in China. And this is what Trump policy does to people. So forget about decoupling, forget about moving supply chains out of China. Everyone now has learned a hard lesson not to trust Trump. Anything any big plans coming out of his administration, you have to take a wait and see approach to see when the dust finally settles. And this is a big capitulation. I'm sure the MAGA media will pose this as a big win, but this is actually because the rationale for rolling back the 10% fentanyl tax is China promised to work with U.S. on fentanyl problem. But China has always said they would work with U.S. on the fentanyl issue, right? China always held that door open for cooperation. It was U.S. that insisted China was creating the problem. So in essence, this is what we had before when Scott Bessent went to Europe to sign the deal ceasefire. That was a temporary ceasefire. So in September 29th, Trump administration violated that ceasefire. That led China to put the kibosh on the rare earth. And that led a lot of serious problems because you need rare earth in everything. And then the 50% rule put on Trump administration is having a rippling effect of causing semiconductor shortages. Now, a lot of the automakers, from Japanese to Germans, they're all facing the real possibility of production being shut down because they couldn't get their access on semiconductor because of the U.S. semiconductor restriction on China, particularly that Dutch government seizing of Nesperia. That's causing China to restrict semiconductor supplies coming out of China, and that led to the Honda shutting down their Mexican plant. Germans say that they're weeks. Germans and American automakers said that they're weeks from running out of semiconductors, right? So they're weeks from halting production, and this was a big deal. This is why Trump had to cave, because they realized they screwed up, and now what we have though is things. China still did not lift the rare earth restriction on defense contractors, because that restriction went in effect before October 9th. So Raytheon Martin, they're still going to have problems to find sources for stuff like F-35s and the U.S. missile systems. So China won big. China won bigly this round, and I'm still waiting to see how Fox News is gonna spin this as a Trump victory.
Yeah, it's wild, right? I mean, as I keep pointing out, it wasn't like China initiated a trade war. Trump did. And so anything that China did was reciprocal. It was, we're doing this in response for equality. Basically, we're a peer, and we're not trying to be asymmetrical. We're just equality. You take a step, we take a step. You take a step, we take a step. And so, obviously Donald Trump was doing that stuff because he thought he can get some kind of advantage out of it. And the fact that he couldn't get an advantage, and as you pointed out, it's Thursday, time to have tacos, he backed down so many rungs on that ladder that he had to. He had no cards in this mix. There was no way he could go. He didn't have escalatory dominance. And it became clear he didn't have escalatory dominance. If we think of any other situation where Donald Trump has the advantage or he thinks he has an advantage, he presses it. He didn't have it. So he had to back down. Now, I guess the catch becomes, will he abide by it? And will he continue these little games of poking the dragon? I guess we would have to see. The rare earth thing is a fascinating thing too. No, please answer that. Go for it.
No, I mean, when you say whether he will stop poking the dragon, we know what's going to happen if he keeps on doing that. China is gonna escalate the escalation ladder, and China do have escalation dominance, particularly in the realm of the rare earth. And one of the problems for the Trump administration is that they did not think China will retaliate this hard, because China has, since the first Trump administration, when Trump first put a trade sanction on China, China has been working very, very hard not to escalate the trade war, because China really do not want the trade war. So China have done utmost to practice strategic restraint, not to retaliate or have very muted response. But for the Americans, they took the wrong way. They think that's because, they're weak. We can do whatever we want. They will always back down. But that's not what happened. What happened was China was initially shocked when Trump first placed sanctions back in 2018. So ever since, they have been carefully building up their own indigenous capability, so not to rely on United States. So they had a good 7-8 years to prepare for eventuality of decoupling if things goes back to worse. Whereas there has no such preparation on the U.S. hand, because U.S. decision makers just assume China will always back down. China would not retaliate. And so this is why they're so shocked and reacted very, very badly when China did finally throw down the gauntlet, because they did not expect this move. But China today, they're prepared to throw down the gauntlet because they had 8 years to prepare for the worst for the trade war. They know what kind of damage they will expect and what kind of damage they can take and what kind of damage they can inflict. This is in the art of war. Know yourself, know your enemy. You win 100 times out of 100 battles. But in case of U.S., if we don't know ourselves, then enemy will not know ourselves either, right? That's a U.S. strategy, but it hasn't been working for Trump.
Hubris, man. Hubris is rough. Like, arrogance and hubris. What is it? A book? In Three Body, he made this point of like, weakness is not a hedge to existence. Hubris and arrogance is. And for all intents and purposes, as I keep pointing out, the U.S. is not interested in the way other countries function. What they're interested in is in objectives. And so we would come out and say, we're going to do a trade war. Okay, he assumes that everybody else is going to back down and that he's going to be able to dominate the globe. And China tells him to F off. And even in the context of the war, where Trump comes in and assumes, well, I'm going to talk to Vladimir. And when I have a conversation with Vladimir, we'll be able to make this work. Oh my God, Vladimir told me to F off politely. And he's shocked by the whole thing. And it's almost like this new norm that the US is trying to get used to of having peer countries, peer competitors, that doesn't accept this idea of it being in primacy or hegemon. And it's like coming to grips with it. And, you get this humiliation of him dragging himself to South Korea, only to back down entirely in the trade war, or even in the context of him having a conversation with Xi Jinping about Ukraine, it was like, well, sometimes you got to let them fight it out. Can't do anything about it. It's like, yeah, you can't do anything about it. Congratulations, right?
In their joint statement, they mentioned nothing about Ukraine anymore. They don't even mention about what U.S. want China to do over Russian oil purchase, because China has made its position very clear. It's like, that's none of your business. We're going to continue to buy Russian oil whether you like it or not.
Well, Trump said he didn't even bring it up.
This is well, exactly. Yeah. Well, because it's not going to lead to any results. I mean, it's going to lead to more humiliation. So why? This is So this is a big Taco Thursday moment. I like tacos. I do enjoy tacos. They're great.
Tacos are damn good, man. My boss once, he said, when we're covering the election for what is the name? It'll come to me in a moment. But we're covering the election in Mexico. And he's one of those people that eats everything. I'm one of those people that are very, very choicy. We end up going to this random, I'm calling it a hole in the wall, but I don't mean hole in the wall as a negative. I love hole in walls. So I'm saying that almost as a positive. And we sit there, and I'm sitting there like, all right, I'll take a taco. And I have no idea what's on the menu because I can't read the menu. And I'm like, all right, just give me that. It's a taco, right? It should be good. It was damn good. I love tacos. So I agree with you. Tacos are fantastic. I'm curious on the rare earths thing. So Xi Jinping didn't change his original policy on rare earths. He just pulled back on the extended rare earths, let's say, policy restrictions that he initially put on. Am I getting that right?
Right. So the restriction that was the Chinese pulled back from the new restriction that was imposed after October 9th. So, which means the restriction that before October 9th is still on, which would still affect the U.S. defense industry, which is it's key. They're still not getting the rare earth for their F-35s and Patriot missiles and all that good stuff. So this is why Trump has been going around knowing that he was signing agreement on getting rare earth supply from Cambodia, from Thailand, from Malaysia, from Australia. But you know what? All that doesn't matter. That's just taking the stuff, digging it out of earth. You still
Right.
need to refine it. You still need
Right.
to send it to China to refine it. That is the problem. All these rare earth supply agreement is just PR stunts, to fool his following. Oh, United States securing rare earth supplies. No. You still don't have the refining capability, and that's going to take years, decades to build. So U.S. military machine is still going to face that problem for a long, long time.
Mm. And that's not changing. That policy is not going to change anytime soon.
And not anytime soon, especially with the way the U.S. military, right leading up to the summit, they had conducted a big military naval exercise in South China Sea. That's where they lost that helicopter and the F-18 during the crash.
Yes.
They did this whole exercise to intimidate China in anticipation of the summit, and then it's like that meme. China just do nothing and win. And they they even announced that they're gonna fire some missiles, HIMARS missiles from the Philippines toward the disputed Scarborough Shoal.
Really?
But yes, that was leaked right before the South Korea summit. But that could be one of Trump's negotiation tactics. He always bluffs. So I at this point I don't think I don't think that will even happen, because what's the point anymore? But one more HIMARS missiles they fire, it just means one more they will have to replace, and they're gonna have problem replacing because the existing rare earth restrictions.
Wow. How does China, so from China's point of view, it looks at this as, the longer time we have, the better position we're in. And if we can create a context whereby the US military and whatnot can't continue its buildup, can't launch a war, then by definition we win. Meaning, from China's point of view, this is a checkmate. That the king, like mate in four, that for all intents and purposes, the United States has been restrained militarily. We've defamed the military to a certain degree in the context of, let's say, any kind of large war that it wants to run, because ultimately it would have a hard time replacing its military armaments and capabilities. Warwick Powell pointed out that 75% of the US military equipment is either, let's say, directly related to China, meaning from the standpoint of vendors coming directly from China, or from third-party vendors from China. That number blew my mind. And so when China puts on the restrictions, it hits a large part of the US military and its capability, not just the military, things like AI. So the US economy at this point is effectively living off of AI. If it wasn't for AI, the US economy would be in a recession. And so they've damaged that. Energy production, things like laptops, like just basic things that we don't really even think about in this country are affected by that restriction. Or let's say the slowdown that has effectively been put into place by China on rare earths. And so is that the thought, that the longer the U.S. takes to dig itself out of this hole of rare earths, and it will try to, I mean, it's going to try to scrounge up rare earths and refinement and stuff like that. Hell, it may even use Europe to try to do it. That may take 20 years. In 20 years, this is a checkmate. We will have more planes, we'll have more boats. The strategy of blocking off Chinese shipping and everything else, all of that stuff will be a wash. They lose. Is that the way China looks at this?
Well, I mean, that's a perfect way to look at it. But if you look at the Chinese military parade in September, that was to put United States on notice. Like, look at all this latest hardware we have. We can no longer be contained. And I think that message was well received, because now you have the Pentagon papers saying, "Oh, China, let's focus on Latin America instead," right? I mean, that's why they're doing all these intimidation tactics against Venezuela now. So yeah, I think the risk of war, a big great war breaking out in the Western Pacific, has diminished greatly. Now it's back to economic competition, but all these strong arms by Trump administration have failed. So there's really not much cards U.S. have left on this table. They're like you said, they're putting all their eggs in the AI basket right now. They're betting on this, hundreds of billions of dollars into investment into data centers. Is going to give them this magic wonder drug that's going to somehow propel U.S. to the next level. But did you just see that Powell just made a statement that the AI boom is not like the dot-com bubble? And I'm thinking, now we have the official confirmation. I mean, well, I have experienced a dot-com bubble. That's when I first got into the job market. And it looks, smells just the same, like because the dot-com bubble at that time, there was a lot of companies. Because at that time, everybody knew internet was the future, but there was a lot of money going to all these internet companies that wasn't really producing productive stuff. Now there's a lot of, eventually there's some company that did emerge, like Amazon, Google, but that was well after the burst of the bubble. So you have to remember, during the dot-com bubble, there was a lot of money chasing a lot of pipe dreams, and for me, it looks about the same from here.
Same here. I was in tech. I ended up being a software engineer. And I remember one of the first jobs that I got, the woman pointed out, she says, we used to make like $1 million off of websites. And now we'd be lucky if we could barely get 100,000. We used to do all of it, right? We used to do database, background, everything else. But the moment that you start getting WYSIWYGs, okay, well, then you don't really need all of those huge shops that used to do it. So those shops went out of business, or those shops had to turn into something else. And it feels a lot similar to that. I could be wrong on this. Because, AI will have some effects. Amazon, all of these companies that have been laying off jobs in the United States. I don't know if you've seen that list. That list is extensive. And the thought is they're going to be replacing some of those people with basically artificial intelligence and finding other ways to get those jobs done. But I agree with you. It feels like you have hundreds of billions of dollars that are chasing fantasies. And at some point, that will come to a head. At some point, it will come to a head. Especially when you see stuff like the breakthrough technologies coming out of China. Like when China came out with DeepSeek, you can imagine that a lot of asses puckered in the US thinking to themselves, we put all of this money into these companies and they came out with this and it costs so much less. Where's China on this front? I haven't heard a huge amount, even though I know a lot of tech is coming out of China.
This is why Chinese government is pushing for open source in a big way. It's something that I bet very few tech guys expected 20, 30 years ago. China being the big proponent of open source. That's why you are seeing what DeepSeek is basically giving away stuff for free right now, because they realize like the closed model is what will enable American monopolies to dominate. Whereas open source, you will get a whole community, a global community of fellow experts who will keep on working on this stuff. And this is what I just saw somebody tweeted. He said he was meeting with a expert from Global South who at an AI conference, and this AI expert said, thanks to Chinese companies like DeepSeek, now there cannot be an AI apartheid.
Yes.
He used the word AI apartheid. You're not going to have the have-nots and the haves because it's the AI divide, because DeepSeek made it available for everybody. And that is huge. That is important. But again, that's not going to make a lot of Silicon Valley tech bros happy, because that's how they make money. They make money by hyping up this AI thing and their proprietary technology that they get to charge lots of dollar for. And one of their selling point, Jamar, is that all these AI wonder is going to be able to replace a lot of jobs. That's actually one of its main selling point. It says, oh, we can replace all these white collar jobs while paying white collar jobs. Now it will just be replaced by these AI who essentially work for free, right? You just need to support the data centers. You just need to pay for the data center costs. That's it. And they can work 24/7. They don't need to take a vacation. They never get sick. They never complain. And you know, the end goal is like Matrix, right? Like you know, they have these a few tech lords in Silicon Valley control the whole world through their AI machines. But I don't know. I think I don't think that world will come up to pass. Yeah, I'm fairly confident in that.
Well, it sounds like China is doing this in order to undercut what the U.S. is trying to do in regards to, I like the term AI apartheid. Like, we privatize it, we own it, we use it almost as this kind of in war fighting and everything else. And China's like, well, hey, if we have it as an open source, then people may go to the open source. Like, for example, Google, like Google Docs. Do you really need Microsoft Word if you have Google Docs? Not really. And so it kind of kills your competition in that sense. And the competition in this case is not among companies, it's among nations. It's a fascinating development that China's effectively doing with this, not to mention it's the benefit of allowing everywhere else around the globe to participate in this new technological field. So no, that's you're absolutely right.